Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shatter Your Limitations Telesummit. I'm your host, Faith Presley, and your guide on this journey of co-creating your wildly happy, passionate, and successful life. Today is very exciting because you get to meet Jonathan Bailor, author of the revolutionary book, The Calorie Myth. He's going to help us shatter many myths about calories, exercise, healthy eating, and weight loss. You'll want to grab a pen because Jonathan won't be holding anything back today as he shares the scientific proof that's been hidden from us for half a century. Here's a little information about Jonathan. He is a nutrition and exercise expert and a former personal trainer who specializes in using high-quality food and exercise to simplify health and fitness. Jonathan has worked with top scientists for over 10 years, analyzed over 1,300 studies, and synthesized over 10,000 pages of research. He has been endorsed by top doctors from Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, Yale, and UCLA. Jonathan also hosts a highly popular syndicated wellness radio show and consults for organizations worldwide and is the author of The Calorie Myth. So you can see why I'm so thrilled to have him join the Shatter Your Limitations Telesummit. Welcome, Jonathan, and thank you so much for being with us today. Could I get you to share a little bit of your personal story with the audience?
Thank you, Faith. My journey towards shattering limitations, especially around just calories and weight and all of these restrictive, that's what health has been thought of as very restrictive, which is ridiculous. Life is not about restricting yourself. Life is about growth and intelligence, so we'll talk about that later. But my journey started a long time ago when I was a little kid, and I grew up in a very academic household. Both of my parents are college professors. There's also a really interesting element here that my brother is much older than I am. He is 10 years older than I am, and he is a very athletic individual. So here you have this little guy, me, and I'm just innately geeky. I'm innately geeky. I spent the past decade working as a senior program manager at Microsoft just because I love really technical things and engineering solutions to problems and helping people. So anyway, you've got this really geeky kid who's being raised by extremely academic parents and wants to be like his athletic older brother. Well, consistent with the stereotypes around geeks, my problem was not that I would gain fat too easily. The problem was that I couldn't gain anything at all. And I was this very lanky, goofy, non-masculine-looking child. And I wanted to be like my brother. So I wanted to be big and strong. In fact, I used to wear a Superman costume. This was when I was much younger, not like teenagers. That may or may not be true. When I was younger, I would walk around with a Superman costume on because I wanted to be like Superman. So I did what everyone in this situation would do, and I got as versed in the conventional wisdom as I could. In fact, I went so far as to become a personal trainer. That's the way I paid for college, is by being a personal trainer at Valley Total Fitness in Columbus, Ohio. But that experience changed my life, because here you have me. I'm a person, I'm a Homo sapien. Everyone listening to this is Homo sapien. We're the same species, and I'm eating literally 6,000 calories per day. I would do double shots of olive oil because the only way to get 6,000 calories into your body, it's not easy to eat that much.
Wow.
So I'm eating 6,000 calories, a lot of calories, trying to get bigger. So I'm trying to get bigger. I'm not getting bigger. I'm just getting sick, and I'm going to the bathroom all the time. And I'm working with clients. Now, my clients were very different from me. This is an 18-year-old guy at that point. Most of my clients were 35-plus-year-old women who had the exact opposite goal. They wanted to get smaller. So I did exactly what I was taught and what we've all been taught, and that was to tell them to limit themselves, to limit the number of calories they're consuming to about 1,200 to 1,400 per day, and to limit the amount of time they spent with their family or on their job, because they need to dedicate about 2 hours of their day to pounding it out on the treadmill or working it out on the stair stepper. That didn't help them either. They didn't get smaller. They just got sad and sick, much like I was getting sad and sick and not getting bigger. And I said to myself, Self, how is it possible that we're all humans, and some humans, like me, can eat 6,000 calories per day and not gain fat, and you have other humans who can consume 1,200 calories per day and not lose fat. And that is a fact. Like, that is not my opinion. We all know people who are naturally thin, who eat and eat and eat and don't gain fat. And we know people, oftentimes potentially our mothers are a common example, or our grandmothers, who don't really eat. Like, my mother eats once a day, maybe, and she struggles with her weight. So how do you have one species that has that big of a divergence in how bodies react and what's going on, and it can't just be about calories. So I had to quit being a personal trainer because I started to not even believe in myself. I was like, Jonathan, you can't, this isn't working for you. It's not working for anyone else. You're in the business of helping people, and you are hurting people because telling someone to starve themselves is painful, and 95.4% of the time studies show it leaves them worse off long term. So I retired from being a trainer, but I was still committed to the original reason I wanted to become a trainer, which was to help people and also help myself. So I said, self, what can you do? What can you do now? You tried the conventional approach. It didn't work. Well, here's where the geeky side came out. I said, where did my personal training curriculum come from? And where did that information come from? And where did that information come from? And where did that information come from? And when you ask that question about 5 times, you end up finding these journal articles and these dense research papers that nobody other than researchers ever reads. But if you read them, the disconnect between what the actual clinical research about eating and exercise says and what I was taught as a trainer was shocking. It was literally, I felt like I was lied to because I was. Because what was proven by the science was not at all what was reflected in my teachings as a trainer. And then it started to make sense because for about 3 years I was like, Faith, how did this, eating less and exercising more has to work, right? I mean, it just makes sense. And then I said to myself, actually, how could that be true? Like, we're trying harder than we ever have in human history. No one even knew what a calorie was, let alone count them, up until recently. And America is this exercise-obsessed culture. Go to any other country in the world. They don't talk about exercise like we talk about exercise here. So this whole idea of counting calories and exercise, like we are doing that harder than ever in this country. And we are getting fatter and sicker as a result. So if it was just about counting calories, eating less, and exercising more, how would we explain that? Because we're trying. It's not working. It's failing. And the reason it's failing is because it is wrong. It was a theory that was presented to us in the 1950s, and it's a reasonable theory, but think about it like the theory of the flat earth. Like, it makes sense to think that the earth is flat. Look out your window. It looks like the earth is flat, and if the earth wasn't flat, wouldn't people fall off? But the earth isn't flat when we actually understand science. And when we understand science, like the science of neurobiology, how your brain is involved in weight regulation, and the science of endocrinology, your hormones, which play such a critical role, and the science of gastroenterology, or how your gut bacteria plays a critical role. Of course, calories exist. They exist, and if you eat 10,000 calories per day, you're going to gain fat. But once you understand science, you understand that thinking about calories as the be-all and end-all of health and fitness is like thinking about height as an accurate measure for intelligence. Like, it just doesn't, I mean, yes, small, short children are not always as intelligent as fully grown adults, but height does not measure intelligence. Calories does not measure health. A can of Coke has the same number of calories in it as a half an avocado, which has, quote unquote, the same number of calories as a 30-minute jog. Are those all the same thing? Absolutely not. So anyway, that is my journey. It gets me pumped up because we have been lied to. We have been given theories from 50 years ago presented to us as fact, and in a culture where we so prize being up on things, like the iPhones from a year ago are like, that's the iPhone from a year ago, but we're still given eating and exercise information from 60 years ago. There's been so much research that just hasn't been shared with us. So I since then committed my life and spent 13 years at this point, reviewing over 10,000 pages of academic research, working with people, top researchers at the Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, to take this amazingly complex, proven science, simplify it, and apply it so that the mainstream can start to live better because of it.
It is amazing how wrong we seem to have got it all along. I read a quote of yours where you said, biology doesn't work like math, it works like biology, and that sounds like what you're saying here. We just have got it completely wrong.
Exactly, and it's not our fault. Like you, me, the listeners, we didn't get it wrong, right? If you go drive your car over a bridge and the bridge collapses, it's not your fault for driving the car over the bridge. Somebody built that bridge, and their job was to make sure that bridge did what it needed to do for you. That person failed. We have people in our culture whose job it is to tell us what to eat and how to exercise. They have failed. We haven't, right? I mean, we now need to take the power back because the information is available to us. That's why I wrote this book, The Calorie Myth. Like, we now have access to the science. And Lord knows, based on the past 40 years, no one, I mean, there's a huge vested interest in us being sick and fat, right? There's a lot more money to be made off of a fat, sick, and sad population, things statins, antidepressants, yada, 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 than there is to be made off of a happy and just people who are like, yeah, you know, I'm good. I don't really need anything because I'm already happy. So we have to take the power back. We have been given bad information. And once we have access to the right information, you will be shocked at how simple, slim, and being healthy can become.
Well, it's obviously important that we do that now, too. Some of the stats that you had quoted on your page, thecaloriemythbook.com, talked about the rate of diabetes and prediabetes increasing 100,000% in the last 100 years. That's crazy. Isn't there a sane way to approach this? And can you tell us what the acronym SANE stands for?
One of the primary calorie myths. So they're, just to break it down real quick here, and there's way more detail in the book, obviously, The Calorie Myth. Like the copy, it will change your life. It's changed my life. Anyway, the three major calorie myths. First is that we need to consciously count calories. So I'm not saying, nor is any accredited researcher saying, that calories don't exist and that calories don't count. If you eat 10,000 calories, you're going to gain fat. The thing is, no one who eats food eats 10,000 calories. It becomes a challenge when we stop eating food and start eating edible products that are addictive and toxic and break our body's natural regulatory systems. So the proven science is that just like our body automatically balances out our blood sugar, for example, and automatically when we drink more water, we urinate more, right? It balances us out. And if you try to hold your breath, as soon as you stop, you'll breathe in a lot more. And if you hold your eyes open, you'll blink more. Your body seeks out balance, right? That's how it works. It does the same thing with calories. So it's not that calories don't exist. It's not that they don't matter. It's that the body is designed to balance them out automatically when it's not broken, just like it does for every other thing we eat in the world. Think vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, thiamine, riboflavin, phosphorus, potassium. Like, we don't count micrograms of phosphorus in and micrograms of phosphorus out, yet somehow none of us are dying of a phosphorus deficiency because our body is able to balance us out and guide us correctly. Anyway, the same thing is supposed to happen with calories when we feed ourselves appropriately, but it's very difficult to feed ourselves appropriately when we're told that calories are all that matter and that a calorie is a calorie, so just eat whatever you want, just don't eat too much, which, Faith, is to your point here, a calorie isn't a calorie. That's a myth. That's the second calorie myth. In fact, researchers have proven that calories, this is a fact. This is not my opinion. This is what the research says. It is a fact that calories vary in their quality by 4 factors. I abbreviate them using the acronym SANE. The S stands for satiety, meaning how quickly calories fill us up and how long they keep us full. We all know that different calories have different levels of satiety. For example, there's a popular brand of potato chips that tells us that once we pop, we cannot stop. That brand of potato chips is advertising openly the fact that consuming those calories, far from filling you up, will actually make you want to eat more calories. So calories are not the same from a satiety perspective. We want to eat satisfying calories. That's the S in SANE. The A is aggression. We want to eat foods that gradually give us energy, that don't aggressively dump a bunch of sugar into our bloodstream. This has to do a lot with glycemic index, glycemic load, things like that. Most people are starting to understand this, but we absolutely understand, right, that a piece of whole wheat toast, for example, does something very different to our blood sugar than an equal number of calories from, say, salmon. And that's because one of those food sources provides calories in a much more aggressive fashion or a much more rapid fashion than another. So we want to eat unaggressive foods so we have constant energy and don't overwhelm our body. That's the A in aggression. The N is nutrition. This is the one that we're led to believe we understand the most, but with the problem is, just like everything else, we've been misinformed. We've been misinformed because, for example, we're led to believe that a cereal that has 65% of its calories coming from sugar is healthy because it's been fortified, right? There's this myth that if you take a can of soda and dissolve a vitamin pill in it, that now that soda is healthy because it contains vitamins and minerals. That is not true. Just because a food contains vitamins and minerals doesn't mean it's nutritious. We have to look at everything about the food. So we have to say what else is coming along with those vitamins and minerals. This is why, and again, just like everything else, we understand this intuitively, but we've been lied to and we've been confused by this misinformation. Faith, if I were to tell you that 10 donuts are 10 times more nutritious than one donut, you would say, Jonathan, that is wrong. And the reason that's wrong is because you know that everything that makes one donut bad is multiplied by 10 in 10 donuts. So we can't just look at like the raw, but there are more nutrients. There's more vitamins in 10 donuts than there is in one, but there's obviously 10 times as much bad stuff as well. So we have to look at nutrition quality, or the number of nutrients we get relative to calories and relative to other, or not other, but relative to toxic substances in food. So we need to think about eating nutrient-dense food rather than just food that makes nutrition claims on the label. And that's the N. Finally, the E is the factor that is least well communicated to the mainstream, and that is efficiency. The average person burns about 10% of the calories they burn over the course of the day simply digesting food, right? We don't have little pieces of pasta floating around in our bloodstream. Our body is fueled by two substances, fatty acids and glucose. That's it. Those are the two primary sources of energy for our body. So everything you eat, if it's going to become fuel in your body, has to be converted. Think like turning water into wine or turning lead into gold. There is actually a chemical reaction that needs to happen in your body to convert that which goes into your mouth to something which is available to your body to use for energy. That's an expensive process from a metabolic perspective. That's why 10% of our calories are burnt doing it. However, different sources of calories are dramatically more or less efficient at being converted into energy and therefore stored as fat than others. For example, protein takes about 100% more energy to be converted into fat than carbohydrate does. This is why if you take a diet, say you eat 2,000 calories, and you continue to eat 2,000 calories, but you just get more of those calories from protein, clinical studies consistently show you will lose fat if for no other reason because technically you are eating unintentionally fewer calories because the number of calories you will spend converting protein into usable energy will be greater. So that 10% number will go up. Point is, if our goal is to burn fat, eating less efficient calories or calories that are less easily stored as fat by our bodies can be very beneficial, and this explains why diets higher in protein consistently outperform other forms of diets. So, in short, we want to eat sane foods. Now, if that sounded complex, there's good news because sane foods have three things in common which are much simpler. They're high in water, fiber, and protein. So if the food you're about to eat is dry and it has very little fiber in it and has very little protein in it, it is insane. It is a food or an edible product that will encourage your body to store fat regardless of the number of calories in it. The message it is communicating to your body is store fat. Whereas if you eat foods that are rich in water, fiber, and protein, such as non-starchy vegetables, vegetables you could eat raw. You don't have to eat them raw, but you could eat them raw. You can't eat potato raw. You can't eat corn raw. You can't eat leafy green vegetables, cucumbers, mushrooms, asparagus, broccoli. You can eat all those things raw. Non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, think fish and hormonally pure and humanely raised meat. Think nuts and seeds, and think low-sugar fruits like berries and citrus. These are sane foods. These are foods that communicate health and hormonal healing and energy and abundance to our bodies. We want to eat more of them. In fact, we want to eat so much of them that we're too full for dry, low fiber, and low protein, insane edible products that are primarily starch, sweet, and trans fats, which is basically eat food. Eat things you can find directly in nature. Eat things on the perimeter of your grocery store that your grandmother would have recognized, not the packaged and processed garbage that is found nowhere in nature. It has nothing to do with the calories. It has to do with the quality of the calories and what they're doing to the system that dictates your long-term body composition and health for the long term.
Well, it really makes a lot of sense when you say it like that, so I understand why you also say the secret is that there is no secret. It's just common sense once you know it. I think, though, when we first hear something that's a new way of thinking to us, even though it's sane, we're a little afraid to step forward on that journey into the unknown. So I'm wondering, Jonathan, if you had a success story or two that you could share with us so that you can give people some faith that this is the truth and not just another diet fad.
3 important points here, and one is just a tip, and I say this with all the respect in the world. Like, there's myriad success stories. Go to caloriemythbook.com, and there's a whole tab with success stories. But one thing we need to watch out for is things are true because they're true, meaning because they've been proven scientifically. So this is science that we're talking about here. So the reason I mention this is how, for example, pills, powders, and potions sell their products, is they say, look, here's one person who had success with this, so therefore it's true. Little do we know that that person may have had success regardless of what they did, because maybe they're a naturally thin person, or maybe like with any of these diet pills we see, if you look in the small text on the screen, it's like, when combined with healthy eating and exercise. So who knows? But there's, of course, wonderful examples up on caloriemythbook.com of success stories. But here's the biggest success story, Faith, and the most important success story, and it also gets back to your other question of when we hear something new, sometimes we can potentially put up our guard a bit. Every single person who ever lived prior to the previous 3 generations had no idea what a calorie was, did not go to a gym, and ate primarily foods found in nature simply because these edible garbage things that we have around today weren't available to them, and the rates of obesity were sub 3%, and the rates of diabetes were 100,000% lower than they are today. So that's, I don't know, 100 billion success stories. And that's the thing here. This isn't new. This is the way we ate before we were getting sick and fat. So doesn't it make sense that doing what we did before we had a problem is a great way to solve that problem? But we've been so bamboozled by these calorie myths that I get, like, of course what I just said is true, right? Do what you did before having the problem that has been borne out by every person who ever lived in every culture ever versus counting calories. Yeah, like, that's self-evident, but it hasn't become self-evident because we've been led down this rabbit hole of calories are all that matter, and they're not, and it becomes extremely complicated when you think they are because it's wrong. It would be like trying to avoid lung cancer if someone told you that smoking was harmless. Like, it's really hard to not get lung cancer if you continue to smoke. And it's really hard to avoid obesity and diabetes if you continue to eat non-food that is packed with unnatural starches and sweets and trans fats, because those foods, independent of their caloric content, cause obesity and diabetes. And that is not my opinion. There was actually a study done earlier this year that showed as strong of a correlation between sugar consumption and diabetes as has been shown for smoking and lung cancer, a.k.a. with as much confidence as we know that smoking causes lung cancer, we know sugar causes diabetes. So just like we don't say smoke, just do it in moderation, we might not want to say eat sugar, just do it in moderation. Will eating a little bit of sugar every once in a while give you diabetes? No. Just like smoking 1 cigarette a month won't give you lung cancer. But the fact is that the quality of food is what we need to focus on, not the quantity of calories.
True. That's really powerful information. I appreciate you sharing it with us. I know it's going to make a big difference for people. I also know that we often struggle with putting new information into action, even if we know it's going to change our lives in a really positive way. And one of the other quotes that you have on the site is that obesity is shortening the average lifespan more than accidents, homicides, and suicides combined. So we have to take action, but old habits die hard, as they say. So hopefully that's another myth. Could you give us one small or immediate step that we could take today so that we can change this bad habit of eating in a way that's insane?
First and foremost, just do everything you can to eat more of the good stuff, right? It's not about deprivation. It's about eating half of your plate full of delicious non-starchy vegetables. If you want to eat them raw, that's great, but they don't have to be because natural fats aren't bad for you. So saute them in a delicious natural fat And add some salt, because the research is actually pretty clear about salt. That salt consumed in the quantities that we would consume it if we weren't eating packaged food is not going to harm you. It's delicious. Make that half your plate, just delicious non-starchy vegetables. Make a third of your plate succulent, nutrient-dense protein. Think grass-fed beef. Think any kind of seafood. Enjoy that. Enjoy eggs. Enjoy lower sugar fruits like berries and citrus and nuts and seeds. Just eat so much of that stuff in the order I basically just described. So non-starchy vegetables first. Think lots, half your plate. Think a third of your plate, nutrient-dense protein. These are primarily seafood and meats that are non-toxic and non-processed. And then enjoy lower fructose fruits and nuts and seeds as snacks and desserts. If you just do that in abundance, like eat so much of that stuff that you're too full for everything else, you'll be shocked. Right now, it's really hard to avoid these toxic edible products because we're told to live in a constant state of hunger. And when you're hungry, your brain's like, I just need energy. So it seeks out these poisonous, energy-dense products. But when you're full and satisfied, like imagine always being too full for dessert. Not that you should never eat dessert. In fact, if you go to caloriemythbook.com, we'll show you how to make sane cakes, cookies, pies, even ice cream. The point is more, imagine if you had just a sense of satiation. You were full and satisfied constantly. You were too full for dessert. So you wouldn't have these cravings anymore. So you can do that. You can change your biology by stopping fearing food because you're counting calories and rather celebrating and enjoying an abundance of the right kinds of food and putting so much positivity in your life that you just don't have room for the negativity. Pursue the positive rather than attacking the negative. One quick anecdote as an example of this from one of the world's best teachers, Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was once asked if she would march against the war in Vietnam. And Mother Teresa said no. And the person who asked her was shocked because they're like, oh my God, Mother Teresa, one would think you would be against war. And Mother Teresa's response was, I will never march against war, but if you have a march for peace, I will be there. And that's what we need to do. It's not about fearing calories and starving ourselves and having this negative scarcity relationship with food. It's about celebrating the foods that have been proven clinically and have been proven over hundreds of thousands of years of human existence and freedom from diabetes and obesity. Just eat so much of the good stuff that you're too full for the bad stuff.
It really makes so much sense. I think it's life-changing information that you've shared with us today, Jonathan, so thank you very much for that. And I know your Calorie Myth book has already been receiving incredible reviews, and they're from medical doctors and health experts, so we know that this is the truth, and this is going to really change our lives. And I think the book is a great way for people to follow up on the things that you've shared today. And also available for people on your site, thebailorgroup.com/free program is a 28-day quick start program. So people can go there and they can look up information and get started today. And it's going to have a link so that people make sure they get there. It's thebailorgroup.com. And can you tell us a little bit just about that program that they'll receive, Jonathan, when they go there?
It's a curriculum. It's teaching you this modern science. So you're going to get two things. You're going to get a checklist of resources, videos, text, images that will teach you how to think about food and exercise. Because, again, we can look at top 10 lists till we're blue in the face, but that's a bit like trying to function in a world by multiplying or by memorizing the sum of any possible combination of numbers. It's not how the human mind works. The way the human mind works is you learn principles and then you apply them. That's how we can all add any set of numbers together because we understand the laws of algebra. We're not trying to memorize things. So we will teach you the proven laws of nutrition and exercise, and in addition, we'll also provide you with daily tips. And these are going to be much more motivational, much more inspirational. So we're going to get you that scientific side so that you're empowered to do this for yourself and to do this for your family and friends. And then we're going to give you a little bit more of that heart and emotional side with daily inspirational tips. So it's really an unparalleled free resource. That's bailorgroup.com/free program. And of course, the book is 15 years of my life, over 1,300 research studies, endorsed by And the freaking preface is written by the chair of the Brigham Women's Hospital at the Harvard Medical School, in addition to a wonderful luminaries in the field such as Dr. William Davis from Wheat Belly, Mark Hyman, Daniel Amen, J.J. Virgin, Mike Moreno, basically Sarah Gottfried, who's who of this field. It will change your life. Check it out at caloriemythbook.com. Again, that's caloriemythbook.com.
Thanks, Jonathan. I love how everyone is coming together to support your book. I think that says a lot about the value that you have to offer. And I just wanted to say thank you again, and stay sane.
Thank you, Faith. Have a wonderful year.
Thanks. I will. Bye-bye, Jonathan.
Bye-bye.